A deformed baby is found buried in a baseball field, which leads Special Agents Mulder and Scully to investigate a family suspected of inbreeding. On a stormy night, a woman gives birth with 3 men assisting her. As soon as she pushes the baby out, the men head out to a nearby field with the baby in hand. They immediately start digging, and shortly after, they bury the screaming baby in the dirt. One of the men weeps in agony while the others comfort him. The following morning, a bunch of kids play baseball in an open field. However, the ball goes over the peacock's property and they're scared of trespassing. They end up resuming their game with the new ball rather than going out to retrieve the old one. As one of the kids prepares his stance to hit the ball, he adjusts his foot on the dirt. However, as he continuously does this, his shoe gets soaked in a red, mushy substance. When he realizes it's blood, he silently backs away, stunned at what he's seeing. One of his friends gets even more shocked when he sees a tiny hand protruding from the dirt. Right away, the case gets handled by Special Agents Fox Mulder and Dana Scully. As Scully writes down notes about the crime scene, Mulder notes that 3 men from the Peacock's residence are staring at them. Shortly after, Scully reports her findings to Mulder. However, he barely listens to her and only babbles about his childhood memories. Just then, Sheriff Andy Taylor arrives. He greets the agents and says that they have never handled a case like this before. Scully asks Taylor if he has any suspects and if he knows any pregnant women in town who are now suddenly not. However, Taylor replies that everyone knows each other in town and the pregnant women he knows are all doing fine. Mulder then asks the sheriff about the Peacock residence, so Taylor shares that those 3 boys are all siblings, and their parents presumably died in a car accident a decade ago. He adds that the Peacocks built their farm during the Civil War, and it doesn't have electricity, heating, or running water. Taylor also notes that they raise and breed their own stocks, which supposedly means something else. Scully asks Taylor if the Peacocks have been questioned yet, but he replies that those boys are feeble and unaware of everything that's going on. When Mulder pushes the issue, Taylor reminds him that he wants this town to be peaceful. Therefore, he wants the agents to work on the case without drawing too much attention. After this, Taylor takes Scully and Mulder to see the baby. Having no morgue or lab, the authorities placed it in a fridge to prevent it from rotting. The sheriff takes the baby to the bathroom for the agents to examine, since they can't do it in the office where the townsfolk might eavesdrop. Once they're alone, Scully uncovers the baby and finds that it's severely deformed, as if it's affected by every rare congenital disability known to science. With this, Mulder assumes that they can cross murder out of the baby's death. However, Scully says that they can't know for sure. She examines the body and finds evidence of occlusion in the nose and mouth, indicating that the dirt was inhaled. This means that the baby was buried alive. After the autopsy, Scully expresses her distress about the baby's death and how the mother must have been distraught over its abnormality. However, Mulder claims that the incident is nothing more than young parents disposing of an unwanted child. Scully argues that the child is an unlikely result of a single polygenic mating, indicating that its abnormalities are caused by generations of inbreeding, as Taylor suggested. Mulder says this is impossible since the Peacocks are an all-male household. Just then, Scully realizes the woman who gave birth to the defective child must have been abducted. Because of this, they head to the Peacock's residence. Upon their arrival, they get greeted by a bloody pig's head. Mulder attempts to knock on the door, but Scully tells them they have no probable cause. This is until they peer in and find a pair of bloodied scissors on the table. Because of this, they trespass and Mulder takes the evidence. There are also bloody boot prints on the floor that match those from the crime scene. On top of this, they also find a bloody shovel. Not long after, Scully and Mulder leave with their evidence, unaware that someone is observing them in the dark. That night, Taylor calls Scully to inform her that he has issued arrest warrants against the Peacock brothers. After he ends the call, he takes out a revolver from a briefcase, which he never found a reason to use in his peaceful little town. Elsewhere, the Peacock brothers fix a broken Cadillac and head out somewhere. Meanwhile, Scully bids Mulder goodnight, but as she reaches for the door, she notices that the knob is broken. Mulder reassures her that it's no big deal, but after she leaves, he places a chair under the knob for safety. Elsewhere, Taylor sentimentally observes the surroundings from his porch. Just then, his wife appears and asks what he's doing outside, so he replies that he's taking a good look at his town before it all changes. She reassures him that it'll still be there in the morning, so they should sleep. He agrees and goes back inside with her, but they forget to lock the door. When they're both tucked in bed, Taylor hears the Peacock brothers' car park outside with their music playing loudly. Taylor tells his wife to hide under the bed while he fetches the gun. Failing to get it on time, he grabs a baseball bat and speeds upstairs, waiting to ambush the brothers. When one of them enters the bedroom, Taylor smashes the bat against the stomach. However, the brothers are incredibly strong and easily beat the sheriff with their homemade clubs. Under the bed, his wife desperately tries to keep quiet despite the horror she just witnessed. Suddenly, the Peacock brothers lift the bed, revealing her. They don't spare her and team up to beat her to death. The brothers immediately leave shortly after. The next morning, Scully and Mulder head to the crime scene after they hear of the tragic incident. There, they find Deputy Barney Pester anxiously smoking on the front porch. He went to the sheriff's home to give him a report but instead found the bodies. He shares with the agents that the Cadillac that the Peacocks used belonged to a woman from Baltimore who claimed to have left it when she ran out of gas. Pester then heads a report from the federal crime lab to Scully. Shortly after, Mulder and Scully investigate the crime scene, where they find wood shavings embedded in Taylor's left cranium. Mulder also comments that the sheriff's chest is one big hematoma. Suddenly, Scully reacts to the infant's DNA test, saying that it's all messed up. Although she expected these gene imbalances, there are far too many. Mulder suspects that each of the Peacock brothers must have been the father of the child, but Scully says that only one sperm can penetrate an ovum membrane. Mulder argues that generations of inbreeding could produce such a mutation, but for that to be possible, Scully replies that the infant's mother must belong to the Peacock family. However, the household is composed of males. Mulder brings up the idea of calling backup for Pittsburgh, but Scully argues that the abducted woman needs urgent rescuing. The backups could take a day to arrive, so they must see through the situation themselves. Overhearing them, Deputy Pester enters the room, volunteering to help capture the brothers. He shows off his pistol, claiming that it should give them the upper hand. Before leaving, Scully wonders why the Peacocks killed the Taylors when they didn't know that there was a warrant against them. Because of this, the agents speculate that someone was observing them in the Peacocks' house when they went over to investigate. At the Peacocks' residence, the brothers prepare themselves for what's about to happen. Someone tells them that people are trying to change their ways and all they can do is be ready for it. Meanwhile, Scully, Mulder, and Pester prepare to capture the Peacock brothers. Pester tells everyone to wear bulletproof vests as he thinks that the brothers might have muskets. He takes the front while Scully and Mulder go over the back. As Pester approaches the front door, Scully looks over him through her binoculars. However, he falls right into a trap, which chops his head off in a split second. Scully, who has failed to warn Pester in time, reports to Mulder that the man is dead. As the agents look through the window through the binoculars, they see how the brothers tear the deputy's body apart. Mulder comments that the Peacock brothers are acting like animals and they are merely outsiders trying to enter their den. The brothers are threatened because they're taking away their one chance at reproducing. Realizing they can't enter the house because of the traps, Mulder says they can lure the brothers out. The two immediately head to the pig pen, where they open the gates to set the swines free. Struggling to push them out, Scully meekly calls out "Naram you," a phrase from the movie Babe that supposedly allows anyone to hurt animals. Mulder sarcastically remarks that her plan will work. Just then, one of the brothers exits the house to wash his blood-soaked hands. At the same time, the pigs run out of the pen, gaining his attention. He reports this to his brothers, and shortly after, the three of them are occupied with catching the pigs. Meanwhile, Scully and Mulder use this time to enter the house. They approach the door cautiously, allowing them to avoid a trap that shoots out a spear. Scully announces that they're FBI agents, hoping that the abducted woman might respond. However, no one calls back. Because of this, Scully and Mulder explore the house, where they find photos of the Peacock family on the walls. Just then, they hear something squeak in the room. They look under the bed and find a woman strapped on a board. The woman screams at them to leave, but Mulder reassures her that they'll keep her safe and take her home. The woman is in terrible shape, with her eyes gouging out and her limbs amputated. Scully is stunned at what she's seeing, but when she looks at a picture frame, she realizes that the woman is Mrs. Peacock, the brothers' mother. Mulder returns Mrs. Peacock under the bed, then asks Scully to convince her to cooperate with them. Shortly after, Scully tries to talk to Mrs. Peacock, saying that she's in immediate need of medical attention. However, Mrs. Peacock seems like she's not held against her will. She says she's not in pain, not even after her sons sewed her up after her limbs were severed in the accident. She then reasons that her sons are good people, but Scully tells her that they just killed the Taylors and Deputy Pester. Mrs. Peacock replies that she can tell Scully has no children, because she doesn't know the lengths that a child would go through for his mother. Meanwhile, the brothers discover that they've been fooled by the diversion. They immediately head back to the house to kill the agents. Mulder quickly blocks the door with a table, preventing Sherman, one of the brothers, from entering. Suddenly, the other brother, George, appears behind Mulder, so Scully repeatedly shoots him. This doesn't seem to affect George, so he goes to help his brother in strangling Mulder. Torn about what to do, Scully yells out that she'll take Mrs. Peacock. This gains Sherman's attention, so he chases her with an axe. However, he falls into one of their own traps, so he gets smashed on the spine with a hammer. Meanwhile, Mulder has also managed to kill George by shooting him. He goes to Scully, asking where the other brother is, whose name is Edmund. Suddenly, Scully sees some scratches on the floor, which makes her believe that Mrs. Peacock escaped with Edmund. True enough, she's not under the bed. Because of this, Scully calls the local sheriff's department to set up roadblocks. She then reassures Mulder that they'll catch the Peacocks in time. However, Mulder only replies that he thinks time has already caught them. Elsewhere, Edmund and Mrs. Peacock are in the trunk of a Cadillac. She comforts her son about the death of Sherman and George and reassures him that the Peacocks will multiply in the future. She adds that they'll start a new family and find a new home. With this, Edmund hops out of the trunk and drives away.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.